So this right here might be real hard evidence that nuclear bombs are not real. Hello everybody, my name is Daryl and welcome to Conspiracy Hub. Today we're talking about nuclear bombs, the old scary nuclear bombs that have been around since the 1940s. You know, those things that like drop over a city and completely decimate people, and although they might kill you in a matter of seconds, they also might kill you over a matter of years because you now have radiation that is going throughout your body and destroying your cells one by one until you're just a pile of soup. Yes, those nuclear bombs. But since the 1940s, there are a lot of people who believe that nuclear bombs in fact are not real. Their effects are not real, and the only reason why we think they're real is to keep us all under a state of fear. Today we're going to explore three main pieces of evidence that people use to assert that nuclear bombs are not real. So buckle up, throw on your UV glasses, and let's discover today whether or not World War III will leave you and your family living in a radioactive wasteland. The first piece of evidence we're going to explore about this theory is the fact that original footage is still alive and well since the many tests that have been done on nuclear bombs. The assertion is that cameras and lenses back then were way more sensitive and a lot weaker than the stuff that we have now. I mean, the fact that I'm talking to you through a 4K camera will tell you how advanced our camera technology has become since the 1940s and 50s. So luckily for us, AP decided to do a fact check on this, and they have a whole article about nuclear weapons are real, contrary to conspiracy theory about archival test footage. So really, let's claim the claim. Let's look at the claim. So the claim is that nuclear weapons are fake because no camera could have survived the blast seen in archival test footage. Now, this assertion that cameras shouldn't have survived a nuclear blast really isn't that crazy of an idea, especially when you consider that cameras, like the stuff that we have, camera phones and, DSLRs, they can get destroyed pretty easily, especially if, like, for example, if I'm at a concert and I have my phone, there's like lasers that are in the concerts, UV lasers that are going about, and there's actually footage of phone cameras getting destroyed because of UV lasers hitting the sensor. So when somebody is looking and thinking about the power of a nuclear bomb, it is kind of weird to think that cameras back in the 1940s and 50s survived the impact and destructive nature of a nuclear bomb. The radiation, the UV rays, all of that stuff, and the cameras survived? Really? AP's counter argument is that it's false. Camera setups used to capture nuclear weapons testing in the US were specifically designed to withstand intense effects from the bombs. For example, cameras were encased in steel and lead and positioned on towers rooted into the ground with concrete, as outlined in declassified military reports. These cameras were encased in lead and steel, and they survived. They somehow were able to make it through a massive atomic bomb that, shattered all the houses, all the buildings, everything around them, right? And this camera was able to survive. Sure. Okay. But let's look at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Let's look real quick at how some people have described the situation there to be kind of odd, especially when you understand the powerful nature of an atomic bomb. The second piece of evidence for this conspiracy is, how in the world is Nagasaki and Hiroshima thriving as cities when we dropped nuclear bombs on them? According to estimates from a lot of experts, different conspiracy theorists have been looking at this evidence about how powerful nuclear bombs are, how long the radiation lasts on land and in water, which, by the way, Nagasaki and Hiroshima all had like bodies of water and rivers around them and soil where they used to grow stuff. So a lot of conspiracy theorists are confused as to how in the world a nuclear bomb was dropped on a place like this and yet somehow is thriving and doing great. In fact, let's look at a few photos and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, for those of you that don't live in Nagasaki or Hiroshima, you can look at these photos and say to yourself, dang, this city looks kind of good to have had a giant atomic bomb drop on it just about 80 years ago. Well, this is exactly the concern that a lot of conspiracy theorists have. We see the damage that was happening right here, okay? We see and heard the damage that happened, and we know the destruction that was caused. But suddenly we can see around 80 years later, this place looks incredible. They've built so much and done so much to this city. It makes people question the power of a nuclear bomb, and whether or not they're even real. All right, so we heard from the conspiracy theorists. We saw their points when it comes to Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Now let's read the reports from the scientists who are radiological scientists who know all about radiology. Let's look at what they have to say. Now, this statement right here actually explains why a lot of people think that nuclear bombs are actually fake and there's no radiation and all this stuff. Now, listen to this. It says, there is the unfounded fear that Hiroshima and Nagasaki are still radioactive. In reality, this is not true. And this is stated in a report published by K1 Project Center for Nuclear Studies at Columbia University in New York. So just in case anybody was wondering who was writing this, it's these guys. Following a nuclear explosion, there are two forms of residual radioactivity. The first is the fallout of the nuclear material and fission products. Most of this was dispersed in the atmosphere or blown away by wind. Though some did fall onto the city as black rain, the level of radioactivity today is so low it can be barely distinguished from the trace amounts present throughout the world as a result of atmospheric tests in the 1950s and 60s. Now, from just reading this from our radiological experts, I can kind of see why conspiracy theorists will be kind of leery about nuclear bombs and why they might be fake. I mean, think about what they're saying. What they're saying is, look, nuclear bombs actually aren't all that bad. Yeah, you do have some residual radioactivity that happens, but for the most part, there really isn't that much fallout. And honestly, a city can bounce back from it pretty quickly. Like, it really isn't that bad. And yeah, a lot of people might have died, but honestly, it's not a big deal. Conspiracy theorists believe that after a lot of research and time looking at all of this evidence, they actually think that nuclear bombs are not nuclear so much as they are fire bombs, just massive explosions that cause a lot of damage to a large area. But the nuclear part is the part that they have a hard time dealing with. When you consider a nuclear bomb, a lot of people believe that once a nuclear bomb hits you, it's over. There's no more growth, no more grass, no more nothing. It's all gone. At least that's what we have been told regarding nuclear bombs for decades. But when a conspiracy theorist looks at this evidence and they say, wait a minute, so nuclear bombs really ain't all that bad? I mean, they can destroy a city for the most part, and then suddenly maybe 80 years later, 50 years, 60 years, everything is okay? It seems kind of suspicious, and that is exactly why a lot of people don't think nuclear bombs are real. It's just something about the radioactivity just not being that dangerous over time that people can't wrap their head around. All right, so for the third and final piece of evidence concerning whether or not nuclear bombs are real, it is, well, before we get there, I want you to like this video. Please go down and hit the like button. It's really gonna help videos like this get boosted in the algorithm for YouTube, and that really helps channels like mine to get seen. Also, don't forget to subscribe. That'd be really important. Just go hit the subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, and that's all you gotta do. All right. And the third and final piece of evidence regarding whether or not nuclear bombs are real is that they just haven't been dropped since the 1940s, right? Again, we know that other countries have tested their nuclear bombs, but they've only really tested them over water or in places like that. We as the public have not seen ever in our lifetime a nuclear bomb hit a place ever. And part of that is the reason why a lot of people just simply don't believe nuclear bombs are real. They think that they're probably just giant fire bombs that destroy a lot of stuff. Now, I do want to show you this video that I think is interesting, so please take a look at this and we're going to discuss it.
Terry was basically faking these bomb tests to freak out the Russians.
How did they fake it?
They just did, yeah, exactly.
This is
exactly. Well, so there's a, yeah, okay, so here's a question, right? So what happened, okay, so this is great, okay, you'll love this. So what happened to the camera?
You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch.
How is that happening yet the camera is like totally stable and fine?
Oh my God.
And by the way, and the film is fine. Well, and by the way, okay, we'll do this one, we'll do the loop one more time here.
It showed up.
So wait a minute, first of all,
wasn't there.
First of all, where'd the car come from?
No car.
The second is, does it really look like
car.
a real, does that look like a real car?
That's insane. The fucking car. Wow.
That video was describing how Oppenheimer and his team during the Trinity Project actually faked the nuclear bombs and were actually using dioramas, not real buildings and not real cars, but instead like a little set of dioramas and just blowing them over. It gets kind of crazy and it's a little wild, but I mean, at the end of the day, this would make any conspiracy theorist throw their antennas up and start thinking that something is really strange. But I'm going to go ahead and hit you with the final counter argument that was given and some research that I had done that started making me think that this theory might be on some shaky ground. All right, what is an atomic veteran? An atomic veteran is somebody who was exposed to radiation in the military between 1945 and 1992. These veterans were members of the United States military who were involved in nuclear tests or served in or around Hiroshima and Nagasaki. According to interviews done, soldiers could feel the atomic blast from miles away. The soldiers recount the blast turned their eyes into X-ray machines, allowing them to see bones with their eyes closed. Many of the soldiers were even experienced broken bones from the power of the detonations. Additionally, the soldiers felt the extreme heat wave from the nuclear explosion. Yes, you heard that right. There were American soldiers that were affected by nuclear weapons during the testing dates that you saw when I was reading. Now, conspiracy theorists sometimes get into this headspace where if they don't see or feel something happening in front of them, then it's not happening at all, right? Hiroshima and Nagasaki are thousands of miles away in a completely different country that most people have never been to, okay? So of course, when someone says, hey, a nuclear bomb was dropped and caused a lot of damage and actually was real and caused real situations where real people died, sometimes it's hard to conceptualize that because you're not over there and you didn't see it. But now if I'm telling you that American soldiers, US veterans, were actually destroyed from the inside out from nuclear weapons tests, it makes this whole story a little bit different. Now, I've done extensive studies on the Nagasaki and Hiroshima incident with the nuclear bomb. I've done studies on how people's skin was melting off of their bones. I have heard first-person accounts of children who were holding on to their parents and their parents literally disappearing. But for those of you who just, again, Japan is too far away and it's hard to think of, there are American citizens, soldiers that literally fought for this country who were destroyed by these bombs, whose lives were changed forever because of the very real nuclear fallout that came from these bombs. This video right here is called How the US Government Used Veterans as Atomic Guinea Pigs, and this is actually on the New York Times. So you guys are more than welcome to come see this, watch this video, learn a little bit of something, and I'll even put this and the website I showed you earlier in the description below. So although there is a lot of interesting evidence to point to the idea that nuclear bombs are not indeed nuclear, but just giant fire bombs that cause a lot of damage, it's honestly all consuming. There's so much, so many websites and forums that talk about this, but when you actually look at the real effects that have really happened to real people, unfortunately for me, I just can't rock with a theory that literally invalidates the experience and health concerns and genetic issues that came from the actual nuclear bomb testing and damage, that it was real. This stuff really happened. So for me, I think this conspiracy is cap. There's just way too much first-person evidence to really sit here and say that the nuclear in a nuclear bomb isn't real. Look, I get people are scared of World War III. I understand that China and, Russia and Iran are fighting right now or they're about to fight, and there are people scared that maybe these countries are going to release nuclear bombs. But maybe if we create a theory or a conspiracy where maybe these bombs aren't real, maybe this stuff isn't really going to happen, maybe we'll be okay. That's honestly not the right way to think of it. These weapons are real. The effects of these weapons are real. But there is some solace in that if we look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there is redemption for any city that gets hit by a nuclear bomb. Listen, that doesn't sound great, right? I don't want New York to get hit by a nuclear bomb. I don't want Texas or California or where I live to get hit by a nuclear bomb. But there's no point in sitting here acting like they're not real. They're real, okay? At this point, we just need to hope and pray that we're all prepared enough that if anything does happen, that we can get out of Dodge quick enough and live our lives comfortably. I don't know. But I know for a fact to say that nuclear bombs aren't real, that's not it. That's not it. They're real, they're happening, and we just got to be aware of them. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, links are below for the atomic veterans as well as the New York Times video about atomic veterans. And if you want to get yourself a cap, this is available in the description below as well. Get yourself one. They're actually really nice. They're comfortable. And if you have a conspiracy that you're listening to that you think is absolutely false, throw this on. It's actually really nice. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.